Hey everyone, it's John here from Hockey, back with another video, and this video is one I'm excited to show you guys. I got to talk to Jesse Pollock from Bar Down TSN. We went into the Winnipeg Jets, what happened in the play-in round series against the Flames, off-season plans, some targets, and just what is next for this team. And I'm hoping to show you guys a part 2, so if you want to see that part 2, please drop a like and of course subscribe. If you want to see more videos like this, me bringing on more guests, whether it's personalities on TV, players, or just any of your suggestions, get them down in the comment section. But of course, if you're new, subscribe, smash the like button, and hope you enjoy the video. What's going on, guys? It's John here from Hockey. I'm joined by an absolute legend, Jesse Pollock. You guys probably know him from Bar Down TSN. I really appreciate it, Jesse. What have you been up to in quarantine, all that? And obviously, we're in the middle of playoffs, so the Jets got the boot, the Leafs got the boot. What's been up?
Well, I've been pretty miserable. Thank you for the very kind intro, by the way. Yeah, man, obviously sucks to see, I guess, both of our squads out. I'm not losing sleep over the Leafs, but I'm pretty disappointed about the Jets. But that hasn't stopped me from watching a ton of hockey. I'm sure you've been doing the exact same thing. Honestly, the new format has actually been fantastic. I've loved it. Having hockey on during the day while being at home has been amazing. And, man, what can I say? Playoff puck is just the best. You know the feeling.
Yeah. No, big time. I mean, thank you for coming on. I want to jump right into the Jets because they were a team that, I had high expectations. I think I kept repeating myself saying, whoever was going to come out of that Canadian matchup, Jets-Flames, I thought they were going to go far. I think the Flames kind of botched that big time. But what do you think about the Jets in terms of, had they had Scheifele healthy, had they had Laine healthy, were you confident they were coming out of that series and they could have made some noise, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, I'm confident we would have won that series if we had our main squad together. You could just see all the air was sucked out of the balloon. 7 minutes into the series, and how do you come back from losing your best player? You just can't. Mark Scheifele is the Winnipeg Jets' best player, and I don't even think there's a question about it, other than Hellebuck. But I'm not talking about goalies here.
Yeah.
Just devastating.
No, exactly. Well, it's one of those things, you weren't even given an opportunity, to be honest. I mean, as much as you could say, the Jets have some decent depth, a lot, and it was talked about, a lot runs through Scheifele. He is just, he's a top, you could argue probably top 10 center, top 15 at the very least, in my opinion. A lot runs through him. Looking at a guy like Laine, who I thought was going to really pick it up this playoffs and just in general, what do you think of, we didn't get to see too much of him, and then the injury. What is your mindset for Laine going forward? Because he's only got 1 year left on that bridge deal. Are you a big fan of Laine and just his position on the Jets?
Man, I'm a huge Laine fan. I really think he took a step forward this year. He became a more well-rounded player, and he focused on his game defensively. Obviously, offensively, he was still chipping in. Do I think Laine is going to stay here? I have no idea. I think the Jets keep things – they're very I don't know if secretive is the right word necessarily, but they don't really make too much public. And I think they like keeping things within the organization, which is totally respectable.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. I honestly have no clue. We're going to have the cap space. So I would like to think to give him a deal. But the question is, are the Jets willing to pay Laine what he wants to make? And I don't know about that. They might be on different pages. But I'm a big Patrick Laine fan. I hope he stays in Winnipeg for as long as he can. But I think this could have been a good playoffs for him. But it is what it is. But next year is going to be a big year for Patty, and we'll see if he can continue to take more steps forward.
Yeah, no, good point. And you don't necessarily have to look at a certain player here, but I'm curious from your end and just kind of your position as a fan here. You look at, obviously, Laine, Ehlers, Connor, Wheeler, Scheifele. Those are the big five for the most part. Do you see one of those players maybe becoming, or maybe outside of that, you got Roslovic as well, you got a bunch of players there. You're looking at the defense, do you have to lose one of those pieces to improve the defense? Because you've obviously got DeMello there, but he's going to be a free agent, and then your top two, Pionk one more year, and then you locked up Morrissey. They've played decently structured, especially with Hellebuck going off this year. What's your mindset in terms of that?
Yeah, you can even just look at what the Leafs did by moving a guy like cap it, and not that it was necessarily for a defenseman, different circumstances, but
Yeah.
sometimes if you have enough forwards, you're going to have to move one of them eventually. The Jets obviously have a pretty strong top six, but there is one glaring hole in our top six, and it's our second line center. Who knows what's going to happen? We don't know what's going to happen with Brian Little going forward. Hopefully he can make a return to the lineup, but we saw Cody Eakin clearly. I like Cody Eakin, but I think he was kind of pushed into a position he's not used to being in the playoffs. He's not a second line center, and the reality of the business is sometimes most of the time you gotta give up a big piece to get a big piece. So I could see one of those guys going. A lot of people have been kind of throwing the name Ehlers out there quite a bit. He's on a pretty reasonable deal, and I'm sure teams would be willing to take that contract. But who knows? I like Nikolai Ehlers. I think he's a great player. I think he had a good playoffs, and he plays with a lot of heart, and he just seems like he is a good dude. I had the pleasure of meeting him once. So, maybe one of those guys, but yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens with the Jets next year on D. It's going to be a big one. We might draft a D. I love Neil Pionk. I think Sandberg is hopefully going to come and be effective next year. So we'll see. Exciting times in Winnipeg. And as long as you've got a good goalie like Hellebuck, your team can kind of do anything. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Jets. We have a lot of cap space to work with, so we might not even have to trade anyone.
So is that something that you see as more of a priority, that second line center, or is the defense, building that defense, more of a priority? Like, as a fan, has it been frustrating going after rentals like the Stastny trade and the Kevin Hayes trade? Like, has that been pretty frustrating as well?
Definitely. I mean, we haven't been able to lock it down on that second line for a long time. And I like Brian Little. I think Brian Little's done a lot of good things to our organization, but I think when you're willing to go out and get centers to replace him and move him down, then clearly – you haven't really satisfied your need. And Paul Stastny was fantastic for the Jets, and it's really a bummer that we couldn't sign him. But, I mean, it's just the way it goes. And, Winnipeg's not exactly the first place where players want to sign. So, I mean, I always give such props to our management for bringing anyone into Winnipeg because – people unfortunately don't think as much of Winnipeg as other cities, but not saying that was the case with Stastny, but Winnipeg is such a great city. For all you NHLers listening to this potty, I'm telling you, it's a heck of a city. Vegas of the North, actually. So, it is really frustrating. We need to lock down that second line center spot, and that's why we could draft a guy like Lundell in the draft this year and just commit.
It's been an issue for so long. Like, it's been a hole for so long that it just feels like, while you want to build up the defense and hopefully you can bring back DeMello or Hamonic. I don't know. There's a bunch of defense they could sign, but
you know what? I like DeMello, and I think Hamonic could for sure come to Winnipeg, come back to Manitoba where he's from. And, now that we're losing Buff, we're going to have some cap to work with. So, it's going to be a very interesting offseason in Winnipeg. Probably maybe our most interesting since we got the team back.
Yeah. And is there a certain depth guy that you could – I mean, are you pretty, solid with the depth, like Perreault, Kopp, Lowry? Like, do you think those guys fit in the long-term picture, in the bottom six? Or what's your mindset on that?
Yeah, I mean – there are certain, there's obviously certain, as a fan, there are certain players that you prefer more than others. I like our third line. I think Adam Lowry has developed into a really nice player.
Yeah, he's very versatile.
He does a lot, and he'll compete for you in the playoffs. I think it's valuable to have guys like that who are big, willing to go in the corners, and just having a player that other teams fear a bit. You need to be tough. That's why losing Byfuglien was so tough for the Jets too, because I'm telling you right now that if that Matthew Tkachuk thing happened and Byfuglien was on the ice, it would have been ugly. And I like Andrew Kopp. I think Andrew Kopp is a great player. I think Jack Roslovic has a lot of potential. I don't think he's quite hit it yet, but I think he hopefully will. He's still a young player, so he's really flashed some great talent. But that's the thing too. You got to look at these players before you ever say, "Oh yeah, let's move so and so, let's move so and so." Like, you got to just let players kind of mature a little more. So I think the Jets have a lot of pieces like that who are still growing into themselves, and I think there's some players that when their contracts expire, the Jets will obviously move on from.
So that was my part one to my conversation with Jesse Pollock. We focused more on the Winnipeg Jets, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. I just wanted to go over some targets. We really didn't go specifically on some targets, and I usually like to look for some examples and show you guys kind of a mindset of what the Winnipeg Jets could look at. So for the second line center spot, we talked about it with Jesse. So Dylan Strome, Cirelli, Tyler Johnson, Carl Soderberg, Philip Deneau, Max Domi, Kyle Turris, and Tyler Bozak. I think these are a few guys that they could look at. Obviously, some UFA options could be in the works. I think if it's more that second line center spot, I think Soderberg might be the only option. I mean, if you look at RFA status, Max Domi's there, Cirelli, Strome. I think it's a little bit of a reach to look at guys like Dubois or Barzal, but a trade option could be there as well. And I think maybe Deneau or Tyler Johnson could be more realistic. But a guy like Kyle Turris or a guy like Tyler Bozak could be a lot cheaper, and you send cap the other way if you're the Winnipeg Jets. I think this could make a lot of sense, but again, Tyler Bozak, $5 million, Kyle Turris, $6 million. It's a lot for what they've been producing, but they have played in top six roles in the past and been successful, and maybe one of those guys could step in behind Mark Scheifele and find success. So obviously there's a lot more options, but this is just to kind of give you an example of different kind of options, whether maybe they consider an offer sheet, but I think it would be a trade and then sign an RFA. Some defense targets. I think this is something that's, I would say, at the top for the Winnipeg Jets. I think the second line center spot, as we talked about with Jesse, is like important. It's a spot they haven't been able to solve. But the defense, after losing Trouba, Myers, Bufflin, like this is something they need to fill. And I'm going to say straight up, I think they need to bring back Dylan DeMello. And if not, then they need to bring in at least two defensemen. And it goes down the list. Hamonic, Tanev, Barry, Brody, Gustafson, the UFA options. Gosh Despair could be an option with the Flyers. Letty, another trade option. Shattenkirk, UFA option. Sergachev, an RFA option. I'm sure there's more out there that we could talk about, but Sergachev for me is like the bigger one that could be an option. Ristolainen and Petrie, another two trade options. Petrie, 1 year left on his deal. And I've talked about it before. I think the Jets and Hurricanes could hook up for a trade, and the Hurricanes have a few defense that maybe the Jets would be interested in. So that is something I wanted to go over just to add to this video and just give you guys some context and just some examples of what the Jets could look for. So who would you love for me to collab with or bring on the channel next? I think it was really fun, and I want to release a part 2. So definitely drop a like. Let's get a bunch of likes on this video, a bunch of comments. New subscribers welcome. We do a bunch of hockey stuff on here, and I want to bring on more guests. So if you want to see that part 2 with Jesse Pollock, hopefully you stick around, and yeah, hope to see you soon. This was John from Hockey. Have a good one. Peace out.